On this episode of Still Loading, the secret is a lie. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today on the show, it is, I think, my first adventure game of the podcast. I have not discussed an adventure game, a point-and-click adventure game on the show. I have talked about the Living Books games, which are kind of like that, but they're not really a point-and-click adventure game. It's kind of more of like an edutainment thing. So this is really the first true and blue point-and-click adventure game. And with me today is a friend of mine from one of my favorite gaming podcasts, a podcast that I've had numerous guests from. There's like 5 hosts, and you'll actually be the 4th out of the 5. I almost have all of them. I almost have the pentafecta. What would be like? It's not trifecta. There's like 5 of you. So what would that be? I don't know.
I feel like pentafecta is good. You gotta catch all of us. We're like a Pokemon collection.
Yeah. Right. So with me today is Manda from the Tasted Dragons podcast. Manda, how are you doing today?
I am doing excellent. I am ready to join you on your adventure. I have my sword and my adventure pack on. I am down to talk about.
You have your rubber chicken with a pulley. You have
yes.
You have your red herring fish. You have insult sword fighting. You've come prepared with a lot of jabs ready to throw.
I am. You fight like a dairy cow. How'd I do? A dairy farmer. Oh no.
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember all the different insults. You have, my tongue is sharper than your sword, and your reply should be, first you better stop waving it around like a feather duster. So there we go. That will make no sense to anyone who has never played a Monkey Island game, but we are going to be talking, I guess I didn't even say the name of the game. We're talking about Secret of Monkey Island, the first game in the Monkey Island series. Now, the reason why we are talking about this, it actually kind of worked out because I planned this. I wanted to do an episode on this a while ago. And it just so happened very recently that Ron Gilbert announced he's making a new Monkey Island game that I believe is supposed to come out later this year. Am I right with that?
Yes, I am so ridiculously excited. They haven't worked on a Monkey Island game since like the 80s. Excuse me.
Well, the last one... The last one Ron Gilbert worked on, the creator of it, was the second one, which was Secret LeChuck's Revenge, Secret of Monkey Island 2. And that came out in 91. The first game came out in 1990. Second one was 91. The ones after that, there was 2 games that came out after that were part of the series that he did not make. And then Telltale, before Telltale went under, did the Tales of Monkey Island games. And they also, I don't know if they did the remasters, but the remasters came out right around the same time that the Tales of Monkey Island series came out. And that's not Tales of like the Tales of Vesperia and Tales of Symphonia. Completely different games. But so it... that's the last new Monkey Island game, I believe, came out in 2009. You know what? While we are talking, I have no shame in looking up mid-recording, so we're going to look up real quick. Yes, 2009 is the Tales of Monkey Island, and then in 2009 and 10, they had the remasters, the special editions for the first and second game. The other 2 games that Ron Gilbert did not work on that were still made by LucasArts before they kind of shuttered their doors were The Curse of Monkey Island in 1997 and Escape from Monkey Island in 2000. I've heard mixed things on those 2 games. Have you played either of those?
I have played every Monkey Island game that has ever came out. I am fully versed in the Monkey Island. In the monkeyverse. I never remember the names of the games because, as you've noticed, they have a pattern, but it's not like chronological or logical. It's not like Monkey Island 1, Monkey Island 2. It's like Secret of Monkey Island and then Secret of Monkey Island, LeChuck's... No, but it's not Secret. And then there's like Tales of it. I was just like,
the Secret of Monkey Island.
The 4th one, the 3rd one.
Exactly. No, you're right. They kind of have a naming scheme like the Fast and the Furious, where they, as long as Monkey Island is somewhere included in this title. It's part of the series. It doesn't matter about anything else. It can be anything else as long as Monkey Island's on there, just like how Fast and Furious needs to have either the words fast or furious somewhere in there. Because they have Fast 5, I think Fast and Furious 6, Furious 7, and then there's the Fate of the Furious. That's the 8th one. They just put the letter, they put 8 right into Fate. It's so dumb. God, I love those movies. So before we talk about the game, I wanted to get to know a little bit more about your experiences with this game, because real quick for myself, because I don't have, mine's very short. I never played this game as a kid. I came to this as an adult. I've only played the first one. I beat it last year. I actually started the second one and got very frustrated with some of the puzzles. And spoiler alert for when I inevitably do actually finish that game and do an episode, there is a puzzle in that game where you have to wipe someone's spit off the wall with a plate. And that makes no fucking sense. How is that? That makes me so mad. When I was playing it, I looked it up and I'm like, that is not a solution. What are you talking about? Why would I? Because you're given like a rag or like some type of piece of paper, or like, oh no, sorry, you wipe it off with a piece of paper, not a plate, my bad. But you're given like I think you have like a rag or a flag or just some type of something that's like a cloth. I'm like, okay, why? That's what I would wipe something off. But no, it's like a piece of paper. And then you take that piece of paper and you bring the spit to somewhere else. I'm like, that's who wipes spit off with paper? It makes me so. Anyway, that's a story for another day. So my experience is just playing it last summer for the first time and really enjoying it. I was always interested in the series kind of from afar. I liked the ideas of it. I liked the name of it. It's a really great name for a game. And I never got around to playing it. Finally did last year and really enjoyed it. So Manda, what is your experiences with the Secret of Monkey Island?
So Secret of the Monkey Island, like you mentioned, it came out in the 90s, and I was born in the late 80s. So it was actually the first computer game that my family ever owned. My parents bought it for themselves. They did not purchase it for us. And when I say that they bought it, that did not actually happen. My uncle had obtained The Secrets of Monkey Island, and he made a copy of it and then gave us the copy. So we essentially pirated our first version of Monkey Island, which I really think is in keeping with the game.
It's very fitting. It's very fitting.
And I don't remember how old I was when I first played it, but I know I was really too young to understand it. So I probably played the first 30 minutes of that game 100 times because I wasn't old enough to solve any of the puzzles, but I really enjoyed running around and being a pirate. So I never figured out the sword fighting. I never got off the island, but walking around and interacting with the pirates, I thought was just gold. I have played it again since being old enough to understand what's going on. And like I said, I've actually played all of the Monkey Island games, but the first one is like near and dear to my heart for obvious reasons. Being my not just introduction to like adventure games, but introduction to PC games.
Which Monkey Island game is your favorite of the series? Is it the first one, or do you? I know a lot of people are usually torn between the first two.
That's really, really difficult.
You can think on it if you want over the course of the episode, and we'll be eagerly awaiting your answer at the end of the episode. We can use that as a teaser.
Okay, I'll think about it. All
right, we'll use that as a teaser for the end. But do you have any other memories of this? I didn't want to cut you off just in case.
I did 2 years ago. No. This is longer ago than I think because quarantine messed up time.
Quarantine just erased time.
I already have a really bad memory for dates, and then being in like stasis for 3 years just like messed up my brain. But the year that the most recent Monkey Island game came out, I think you said that was 2009.
Yes, 2009.
I decided in a single year that I was going to play all of the Monkey Island games back to back. So I would have a really good understanding of the Monkey Island canonical lore. And I finished, I think, I forget how the last ones go because they're broken into episodes and not just games. But I finished 8 out of 9 of them. And then I fell off. And I always regret that I didn't finish the ninth one in that year. I did it like the next year, but it was like, I'm just going to lie. So I'm just telling everyone on the podcast to please support the fiction of the story that I played all of these in a single year.
Through.
All the way through.
No one can prove otherwise.
Yes, yes.
You know what? Maybe if you'd be willing, I should totally have you back on. We can just turn this into a Monkey Island series, and we can just kind of go through the games bit by bit. I'll give you time. This time, I'll give you more. Because I messaged you like 2 weeks ago or like a week and a half ago about this. But maybe we can start playing the second one, and then when we inevitably rebeat it, I beat it for the first time, then we can reconvene and do another episode down the road.
I can be like your Monkey Island coach. So when you come up to a red herring or a monkey wrench, I'll be like,
that's stupid. So Monkey Wrench is a puzzle from the second game. I have not got into it on the limited playthrough I have. The red herring is a pretty good puzzle in this one that just went way over my head. It's the writing in this game is really strong. That's one of the first things that I know you're a huge fan of. One of the writers of this game, Tim Schafer. He's done so many things since this game. This was one of his first games he ever worked on. Then he eventually went on to make, obviously, Psychonauts. He also did, I think, what's the motorcycle game? The motorcycle.
The Full Throttle?
Full Throttle, that's what I'm thinking of. I couldn't think of the name. I'm pretty sure he did Full Throttle as well, right?
Yes. Those are with Double Fine Productions, yes.
That's what I thought. So some stuff to know about this game. This game is immensely popular for a number of reasons, and arguably its biggest contribution the thing I should say it's most notable for is being one of the games that really revolutionized the point and click adventure game. Because a little bit of context is needed before we kind of dive into this game, because at the time, point and click adventure games, the most popular ones were the Sierra games, King's Quest and Police Quest. I think Space Quest. I don't remember all the names, but King's Quest was a big one. And while those were point and click, you still had a text parser, kind of like a text adventure, that you would have to input your commands into to interact with the world. Like, you could click to move your character around, so you wouldn't need the text parser to tell your character where to move. But in order to tell your character what to pick up, you'd have to, type in pick up, cup, pick up this. You couldn't just click on the item. So it was a bizarre combination of point and click adventure with text adventure, or a visual text adventure, and it's just a very interesting mix, and it was really difficult to play. I've never personally played any of these. I have played. We played a text adventure together. Actually, I forgot you were on an episode. Oh my gosh, I'm just thinking of now the only ones then that have only you and Troy have been on solo. And Brian, Troy and Brian have been on solo. Joe hasn't been on solo yet, and I was about to say Lewis. Lewis hasn't been on the show for a little bit. Hassel hasn't. Yeah. So my memory just went all over the place. So you have been on the show before. I totally lied, listeners. Don't listen to me sometimes.
We were spies together.
Yes, we played James Bond, and you and Troy tried to get Bond to kiss everything.
If it's an option, imagine if Monkey Island had a kiss button. Just imagine.
You don't waste your kisses, Guybrush, that was, or something like that. Whatever it said in the game. So the text adventure games were incredibly obtuse. Like you never really knew what you could interact with on a screen. You had to constantly guess, test, revise, pretty much. Old school math right there. You would just have to guess and hope that it worked out. What Ron Gilbert did prior to this, his first game was Maniac Mansion, and he created in Maniac Mansion a game engine called Scum, which stands for, oh my god, I wrote this down. Hold on. Do you remember what it is?
No, I'm glad you remember, because I know it's called Scum, but I don't remember why.
Here we go. Scum, which stands for Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion. And a lot of LucasArts adventure games, point-and-click adventure games, from there on were made in Scum. And the reason that is because prior to that, he was coding all in machine code, just directly hard-coding it onto the computer. What made Maniac Mansion so important is that he created the Scum engine for it. And so instead of having to actually do program directly, like hard code everything in, he created this engine that would make it easier to drag and drop art assets in and out, made it easier to type in dialogue and change dialogue on the fly. So instead of having to hard code everything in, you could just type it in real quick and recompile, which still took a while. But the other way, you would have to hard code it and recompile. So I'm assuming, at least. And you could just jump it in real quick, and then you would be able to test it out right there and then. It was a lot quicker and a lot more fluid of a creation tool than it had before. And because of that, because it made it easier for them to design games, he was able to bring on more people, like more younger talent, like Tim Schafer and like who else? I wrote down some of their other names because in the documentary that I was talking to you off mic about, Manda, some of the members of the team, who was the other person he brought in? It was Dave Grossman. Dave Grossman and Tim Schafer were the two young ones. He called them scumlights, something like that. I forget. He had a kind of like a cute little nickname for them, scumlets maybe. And they worked on Monkey Island as well. But Scum was super important because instead of having for the player to guess what verbs they were given, they didn't even have a command list a lot of times. Like, I mean, when we were playing the James Bond game, we had no idea what all the different commands were. I literally had to look up a walkthrough and send you guys a list of possible commands you could use, because it's not like they were listed in the manual. And that was the same for these adventure games. So you didn't know if you wanted to move your character north, do you type in go north? Do you type in move north? Do you type in move up? You had no idea.
And it's almost more difficult with a visual, because at least with the text, it would be like they would say the word watch. So you'd be like, oh, the watch must be important because they mentioned it. With a picture, it would be like, is he wearing a watch? The pixels look watch-like. Are they calling it a watch? Is it a wristwatch? Did I type it right?
Or are you telling them to watch something?
Oh, right, yeah,
exactly. So like there's a whole bunch of things. So what was super amazing about what Ron Gilbert did was that instead of having players having to guess what the verbs were, guess what all the commands are in this text parser, because even if you knew some of the commands, you had to make sure you typed them in correctly. He put all of your verbs, all of your move set right up there on the screen. As you know, with Monkey Island, it's like move to, use, open, close. I should have kept open the screenshot, like the walkthrough I was watching, so I could at least read off all the commands. But you get the idea. You can see all the commands you could use. Additionally, in Maniac Mansion, definitely in Monkey Island, I think they had this in Maniac Mansion as well. You could know what objects you can interact with on screen because you could hover over it and it would tell you the name of the object. Prior to that, it didn't do that. So you were guessing which objects you had to interact with on screen. You could see a screen full of it. It was Where's Waldo at that point. You didn't know which ones you could interact with and which ones you couldn't. So this game was hugely important because it really made adventure games fair. And this was even to a point where Ron Gilbert wrote a manifesto is such a weird word, but it was basically a manifesto, because normally it has a negative connotation.
Manifesto, but less evil. A guidebook. There you go.
Yeah, a guide, pretty much. And he wrote it, and he published it in a computer and gaming magazine. I forget the name of the magazine off the top of my head. I'll look it up while we're talking, but it's called Why Adventure Games Suck. And he published this in the 90s. That's fun. He published this in the 90s. Let me see if I can at least find it. It's on his website, actually. You can go to his website, The Grumpy Gamer, and you can find it. Excuse me. The Journal of Computer Game Design, and he published it in December of '89, in the December of '89 issue. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can read it yourself. You can literally just Google Why Adventure Games Suck. It's the first link, grumpygamer.com, if you want to read it. But some of the points that he makes is that you need to have, because up to this point, adventure games did not have all these rules well established. The objective needs to be clear and concise. The player has to know what the objective is and what they need to do and why they need to do it. They have to be able to live and learn, meaning don't kill them constantly. The King's Quest games were notorious for killing you in humorous and ridiculous ways, which is funny, but then you have to start over and do everything all over again.
It wasn't funny the 15th or 16th time. Yeah.
Exactly.
I played one of the King's Quest games, and there were 7 dwarves, and each one of them you needed to give a different item to. Mm-hmm. But you had to, like, if you got it wrong on the 5th dwarf, you had to start over because you died. And every one of them had like a whole conversation that you had with them if you got it right. And it was just like, God, how many times? And then the 7th dwarf was like really difficult because it was the last one. So you just had to do the first 6 over and over and over and over again.
I wouldn't have hair anymore. It'd be gone. I'd pulled it out by then. I forget exactly how he writes this, but basically make it that you can always get to the items that you need to complete the puzzles. In King's Quest and other games at the time, if you forgot to pick something up maybe 3 hours ago, sometimes you can't get back to that. And especially if you die, maybe it blocks you off from being able to get back to that spot. And now you can't progress. So you have to start over again. So, and that's not really fair to the gamer, because especially with the games where you don't know what you can click on at all, you have to guess. And so it's easy to miss something. And if you do miss that something, and you can't go back to get it, then you're screwed and you have to start over. Puzzles should advance the story and need to make sense, which you could make the argument LucasArts didn't always follow the need to make sense rule.
I guess makes sense. They're using really loosely there.
Very loosely. And then the last one was give the player options, but I didn't get a chance to really look into that last one further. And I'm sure there's others on there. Like there's a whole article that he wrote about it. And it's definitely like, I need to read it because I think it's really interesting. And it came out in '89. You'd think this would be something that someone had put in a retrospective like all these years later. But this came out before Monkey Island ever came out. This manifesto was published, or this article was published. So it's super important to the creation of the game because it really informed a lot of the design decisions in the Monkey Island games. He also was heavily influenced by 2 other things: On Stranger Tides, the book by Tim Powers, which that book also, I think it did a lot of influence for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Am I right? Do you know anything about that? I don't know if that's true.
No, I've never read that, but I'm definitely putting that in my notes.
Yeah, the On Stranger Tides. I've been wanting to read it because it's about pirates, and pirates are cool.
Is it a funny book?
I have no idea. It seems a little bit more serious because I think that's where he kind of got the idea. So he talks about, in some of the videos I sent you off mic about like the 30th anniversary, he talks about how at the time a lot of point and click adventure games were fantasy based, like high fantasy, elves and dwarves and Tolkien-esque things. And he didn't really like that. He was kind of tired of that. So, but he was wondering, are like point and click adventure games only going to be popular if there's a fantasy element? So he's like, well, pirates kind of blend that really well. You kind of get the little bit of that high fantasy element, but you also aren't stuck to the elves and dwarves and, trolls and mountains and stuff like that.
And he used ghosts or fantasy.
Mm-hmm. And voodoo. He did voodoo.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about the magic. Yeah.
And also there is a troll, but it's a person in a suit. Go figure. Those were a lot of his influences. The last influence I'll mention was Sid Meier's Pirates. That game came out prior to this, and it's more of a sim game, obviously, because Sid Meier created like the Civilization games. Sid Meier, created the Civilization games, and Pirates was like that. So it heavily influenced the early design documents. Like early on, The Secret of Monkey Island was going to be called Mutiny on Monkey Island. It was going to be like the combat there's going to be like ship combat. It was going to be a lot more sim based. Like you would have to like attack enemies, take on their cargo, sell it so you can buy more cannonballs so then you can go attack more powerful enemies and stuff like that. And apparently early on in the design of Monkey Island, he had to put a pin in it because Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the game they were making for the movie, took 9 months to develop. So he had to stop cold turkey and jump to that. So who knows what the game would have been if he didn't have to switch over to the Indiana Jones game, because maybe we wouldn't get the Monkey Island we know now. Maybe it would have still been closer to that Sid Meier's Pirates thing,
I can't imagine Monkey Island if it was taking itself more seriously. If like you had item management and you had like violent objectives. It would be a very different game. Yeah.
I agree 100%. I think Monkey Island, it would have lost a lot of its charm if it was taking itself more seriously. I think it was perfect the way, like the tone that they set for this game, especially with the fact that he doesn't want players to die, because that was always one of the shittiest things. Like you could accidentally die in a Sierra game, and they throw shade at Sierra a lot in this game. There is apparently there is a puzzle. The way that, I mean, do you know the scene I'm talking about in the game on the cliffside?
Oh, is it the one where he goes like, "Goodbye, cruel adventure game"?
No, it's where you see something on the edge of a cliff and you walk over to it, and then the cliff wall just crumbles and it comes up with a screen. This is the first Monkey Island game. It comes up with the screen that says like you died, but then and it's in the same font and kind of look and feel as a Sierra game, and then all of a sudden that window closes out. Guybrush comes up from the bottom of the screen, like he just kind of floats up, lands back on the cliff, and the cliff wall is still gone. And it just says rubber tree, like he bounced off a rubber tree.
Oh yeah.
And they kind of like that's one of the instances where they kind of troll Sierra. They do a lot of that in this game. I feel like there's other stuff that they reference specifically, but they do troll Sierra games a lot in this game, and that's one of the instances.
Yeah, their humor is very tongue in cheek. It's so I could see them doing that. I didn't play any Sierra games that came out previous to this, again because if I did, I didn't remember because I was too young. But they even refer to their own games. They'll even like advertise for their own games famously in Monkey Island. Yeah.
Loom. I think they advertise Loom in this game, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pirate sitting in a bar being like, "Ask me about Loom."
I love the idea of just some random, like you go to a bar and there's just some guy in there and the only thing he says to you is, "Ask me about Loom." Ask me about this game. Like, oh my gosh. So for listeners, I had Manda and Troy on for my 200th episode and they're both in character. Imagine if I ever do another one of those improv ones, I want someone to be the character of that pirate where it's just like, "Ask me about Loom," and no one's going to get that reference except for Adventure Games fans. I kind of want that now.
I'll put that on the back burner. I'll remember that. Episode 300.
So some other facts. The character's name in the game is Guybrush Threepwood. His original name was going to be Smear West, which is a dumb name. But the thing is, like, the name is comedic like the game, but his story was not going to be. It was a pirate who had fallen from grace and he must redeem himself. That was the original Guybrush story.
Yeah. That implies that Guybrush was at one time competent, which I feel like doesn't endear you to him as much.
Well, so the name Guybrush Threepwood comes from two different elements. Threepwood comes from the last name of a P.G. Wodehouse character.
Okay.
And Guybrush comes from, do you know this story about where Guybrush the first name came from?
No.
So when they were designing the art assets for this game, the file extension for all the art assets, was .brush. And when they were designing Guybrush, they just called him Guy because they didn't have a name for him yet. It was just Guy.brush. So when they saw that, they kind of just said, "Well, that sounds like a good name." So Guybrush Threepwood is where that's where he got his name from. So yeah, it was Guy.brush was the original thing.
He's basically like generic man.
And it kind of fits with his characters.
It does.
We'll get into it when we talk about the game and the story itself, but like his character is so fun in a weird way. It's wonderful. So there was multiple versions of this game. In fact, the game progressively got better graphics as the years went on. I'm not even just talking about the remasters. It started off with there was like a monochrome version for like computers that didn't have a color screen. The earliest color version only had 16 colors, so the artist had only 16 colors to work with, and it eventually worked its way up to a 256 color palette, which is what you usually see online now. And even the soundtrack went through a lot of different iterations, not necessarily the compositions, but what was playing the music. I don't have a list of all of those, but it changed in a lot of different ways. It changed, like there was like oh my gosh, like I'm blanking on the name of the musical instrument now, but it went through multiple different ways. Like I think I'll send you another link. There's YouTube channel called Ahoy, Retro Ahoy. I don't know if you've ever seen that channel, but they did a Monkey Island one, and they kind of play samples of each of the different versions from the music. It was really interesting.
It's fascinating to think that the game went from like the first PC I ever owned with like the giant floppy disks that were like, 9 inches long that you stuck into the computer. And now like I can play it on my phone. I can like be in line at the supermarket and play Monkey Island.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
What's even more nuts sometimes to think about is like the calculators we use, pre-graphing calculators, just the normal calculators we used in like elementary school and high school, had more computing power than what they used to put somebody on the moon. It's like, what the fuck?
Oh my God, yeah.
Like what have we done in like the 60 years since that happened? Like almost 60 years. What, 1969? So we're getting close to 60 years from there.
So the next thing we need is VR Monkey Island. That's the next step.
That would be cool, actually. That would be really cool. I was going to say the only reason I know we went to the moon in 1969 is because of Even Stevens. They did a musical episode with Christy Carlson Romano singing she forgot to do a book report, so she just repeated that same fact over and over and over again as a full song. I don't know why I remember that, because I barely watched that show. Anyway, some of the last things I wanted to kind of talk about before we get into the story and into the gameplay itself. One of the biggest innovations that they had with this, because like the previous game, Indiana Jones, was pretty innovative, but one of the bigger innovations between that one and this one, and they were pretty close to each other in terms of release, was that they could scale the sprites in this one, and they couldn't do that in Indiana Jones. They could do it by hiding the sprite behind like a foreground image. So like Indy would walk behind a building, and then as the camera kept panning, all of a sudden he'd be closer, but you wouldn't see it all in one frame. You would see him smaller, image would block him off, and then he would be bigger to show that he's closer to you. In Monkey Island, they show you right off the bat. As soon as you're walking down into the town, Guybrush comes from a mountaintop, and you can see him steadily getting bigger as it goes on.
I love that, because that's like them I mean, I didn't know at the time, but that's just them showing off like, ooh, look at this new trick we learned. Watch him move into the foreground seamlessly.
So that's pretty much all the fun facts I really had. I guess a real quick thing one last thing before we dive in, just to name the team of the people who worked on it. Ron Gilbert was the creator and designer and also programmer. And this was kind of a very collaborative game. There wasn't like, just because Ron Gilbert was the creator and designer, like Dave Grossman and Tim Schafer worked on the story, but so did Ron, so did the art team. Like they all kind of shared the load, even though they had their own designated jobs. Dave Grossman did programming, design, and story. So did Tim Schafer. Steve Purcell did artwork. So did Mark Ferrari. I believe Mark Ferrari did a lot of the background graphics. Mike, oh my gosh, I can't read my own handwriting. I think it's Mike Ebert, or he was an illustrator and comic book artist. Martin Cameron also worked in the art department, and Michael Land was the composer, the predominant composer. I believe other people did work on it. But so that is a lot of that. We're 35 minutes in, so that covered a lot. Mike Ebert, I did look it up. It is Mike Ebert, so I was right. And one thing I think it's kind of cool to note, like what was kind of cool about LucasArts is that a lot of the people in games like this went on to kind of helm their own titles. Steve Purcell, one of the artists, went on to create the Sam and Max series. Obviously, Tim Schafer went on to create Double Fine Studios, and he did Full Throttle, and he did a bunch of other stuff that I can't think of because I
Psychonauts.
Psychonauts. Oh my gosh, why could I not think of that?
Grim Fandango.
Grim Fandango. Did Tim Schafer do Grim Fandango?
It is Double Fine, yeah.
Is it Double Fine? Okay, I did not. Well, it was. So wait, no, Grim Fandango is still listed under LucasArts, but the director was Tim Schafer. So yeah, there we go. And there's other games like The Dig, which were designed by Sean Clark and Brian Moriarty. Brian Moriarty, I've heard interesting things about, but I don't know much about him. But they all kind of got to do their own thing, which is kind of cool. And what's nuts to think about, like LucasArts was such a prolific game developer. I mean, everyone talks about their games to this day. Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max, Full Throttle, Grim Fandango, the Monkey Island games, obviously Loom still gets talked about. They only were really in operation for 14 years. They went from 1986 from their first game, and they were involved a little bit before that, because obviously they had to create the game. So I'm 85? I don't know. From the late 80s to early 2000s, their last game came out in the year 2000 before they just kind of went under or whatever. So it's interesting that for a company that really only truly hit it big in the late 80s and early 90s, that to have such a profound impact. Like Nintendo's been going on for like 30, 40 years, but people still talk about Monkey Island and about LucasArts adventure games. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to think that like they only really lasted for basically a decade, a little over a decade and a half.
I think it's because of the innovation that you talked about. Like they did things that were just like groundbreaking for the industry. So like people have like such a nostalgia for these games, not just because they were good, but because they like essentially changed the genre that they were in.
Yeah, I think you're right. 100%. It wasn't just, it's one thing if it's good. It's another thing when it's good. It's one thing if it's memorable. It's another thing if it's groundbreaking and memorable. So
yes.
Monkey Island really was that. So let's dive into it officially now. We're almost 40 minutes into recording. We're finally getting to the game. I'll be honest, Manda, I don't remember a lot of the individual puzzles of this game. I was telling you off mic, I remember a handful, specifically the one that like, and this is not the game's fault, because the adventure games take a very specific mindset. You really have to just be willing to try everything, take your time, go and explore everything. And as an adult, I don't like that because I want to just be able to go and do, because I don't have that much time. So like when I'm just wandering about, it gets me aggravated. With that said, I still really enjoyed this game. So I remember the story overall of this game more because it's simple but fun. But the puzzles are obviously the big draw of this. And I think it'd be kind of cool to talk about some of our favorite puzzles throughout the game, and just kind of talk about that abstractly. Any puzzles that come to mind. I can give you one, my personal favorite, one of the few I remember. Insult sword fighting. We talked about it at the beginning of the episode. That is a really cool way to make sword fighting, like bring combat to the game, to an adventure game, without actually making the player do any combat. Like it became a puzzle of like, well, which response, like this is the prompt I got, which response is the best used to combat this? And if I'm wrong, then you don't lose anything. You have to go talk to more people to gather more responses to build your kind of, it's almost a little RPG elements a little bit. You're gathering an inventory, you're gathering an experience of insults to hurl back at these pirates as you're doing insult sword fighting.
Did you notice the Monty Python? Do you like Monty Python?
I've seen a handful of their movies. Do they reference the Holy Grail? I'm assuming somewhere in this, or
they reference yes the Holy Grail in the sword fighting. Is one of the insults is your mother was a hamster, and then they respond to your father's
elderberries.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm honestly I'm amazed I remember that. But these insult sword fighting was super funny, and I actually I have a walkthrough brought up, and like just some of the examples. Here's an insult that you would get, and then here is a reply that you would have to do to successfully quote unquote parry this pirate's sword attacks. Nobody has drawn blood for me, and nobody ever will. And your reply is, you run that fast? Not the best one. I guess the thing was like, you're running away. They're running away. The one that you referenced, the cow one, I think is one of the better ones.
You fight like a dairy farmer.
Yeah,
and then
you fight like a dairy
and then it's like a good thing because you fight like a cow.
Mm-hmm.
Or something similar.
I think that's what it was, yeah. I won't take your insolence sitting down, and your reply is, your hemorrhoids are playing up again, huh? stuff like that. Now, what's cool about this too is that you have like a quote unquote boss fight with this, because you have to fight like the pirate master, like the captain or whatever, and it's hard to find her in the first place. And you don't get any new replies for her. You have to take your existing replies and then find how they work with her insults, because her insults are different, but you've got to use the ones that you already have. So you have to kind of take the knowledge that you already have and just kind of tweak it a little bit in order for you to fight this boss. But anyway, I've been going on for a little bit. What are some of your favorite puzzles in the game?
Well, I would be, I got to mention the chicken with the pulley in the middle, because like just that as a concept is so unanimously Monkey Island. Is you find a rubber chicken with a wooden pulley in the center of it, and that is so like, it's such a regular item in my brain, but it's so ridiculous. And then later in the game, you want to get to like this island, but the bridge is out, so you have to use the chicken and the pulley on like a clothesline and you hold both of the rubber legs and you ski down. And I think that's where you meet Meat Hook, which is the artist that has two hooks for hands. So he has to paint with his hooks. And everything about that is just brilliant.
I can't be too loud. My daughter's asleep. I was laughing I forgot about that character, because when I was looking through the walkthrough again, I was like, man, I remember a lot of these. And then it came to Meat Hook. I'm like, who the hell is Meat Hook?
Yeah.
And he's an artist who only has hooks for hands. That poor soul. That poor soul. Apparently he's also a parrot-phobic pirate. He's afraid of parrots.
I think that's how he lost his hands. I don't remember the story, but I think that's a parrot-related incident. He also does like the dance with his pecs, and he's got like a ship, and it makes the ship move.
I remember this guy now. I did not remember he's an artist, but I remember him now. Yes, I remember him very clearly. A lot of the characters in this game are awesome. You have some of them a little culturally insensitive, the Fettuccine brothers.
Yeah. It was the 80s, so in hindsight, some of them aren't great, but yeah.
Though they do make the sword master a woman, which is pretty forward thinking, because in most games it would be some buff dude or some fucking what's the name of the actor that who's the dude from Lord of the Rings? The
Aragorn?
elf.
The actor, the Legolas?
Yes, actor who played Legolas.
Orlando Bloom.
That's who you would see as the sword master.
And Carlin,
stupidly handsome person.
Carla's not just female, but she's also a person of color, which is also super innovative. And she's no nonsense. She's not taking any of your crap.
No, she doesn't. I love the characters of this game. You also have the governor of the island, Elaine Marley, who's beautiful, and that's who Guybrush falls for. Apparently, she was going to be the villain in one of the earliest like concepts. Though her name, before she became Elaine Marley, the governor was a completely different person. The governor was going to be the villain, and his name was going to be Governor Fat. Once again, not necessarily the most sensitive name for a character.
He might show up later in the series, because there's a Fat Island. It's Phatt, Fat, and I think there's Mayor Fat or Governor Fat. I think he gets fed with troughs. Yeah, it's not great.
That's a thing. Then you also have obviously the main villain, Ghost Pirate LeChuck. You also have Bob, who's LeChuck's lieutenant. You have this is the puzzle I referenced before, the Road Toll Troll. But anyway, I'm sorry, I cut you off. You were talking about you mentioned your favorite puzzle is the rubber chicken with a pulley in it, but are there any other puzzles that stick out to you?
Oh gosh, any other puzzles? I recently watched a review of the game just to put it back in my brain, because it has been a few years. This is less a puzzle, but I really enjoy Stan, the salesman. Yes, his arms never stop moving. He's pointing in different directions the entire time he talks to you, and he's so obviously trying to swindle you by selling you this horrible boat.
And his jacket is plaid, but the plaid doesn't move with his shirt.
Yes.
It just it's like a static background that's just behind his shirt. He also, so Ron Gilbert was inspired to create him because at the time he was developing Monkey Island, he was trying to buy a used car at the same time. And so a used car salesman, I mean, it's kind of obvious and on the nose, but it's just funny that it happened literally at the same time. But
he's just buying that car and taking notes. Like, what exactly? No, can you say that again? I need it for research.
Research. I'm looking to become car salesman. So before we move on to the story, are there any other puzzles that you just kind of want to talk about? Because I was telling you off mic, I feel like it'd be boring if we just went puzzle by puzzle. One, because I would just spoil everything for everybody. Two, because I would take forever to go through every puzzle. But are there any favorite ones?
I like the silly ones. I think when you're, again, it has been some time, but I think when you're with the cannibals, you have to steal their own things from them and then give them back to solve the puzzle. And then they're all like really astounded by it. And they're like, oh, this is a really good quality item. So I think the joy of the puzzles in Monkey Island is like, is either when they're really clever, and you're like, oh, this is, or when they're really funny, and it's just like, oh, there's no way this works, and then that's the answer, and you get to enjoy the hilarity of just how silly the situation is. Those are my favorite.
Now, conversely, what are some of your least favorite puzzles? The one I was going to say is I know I said we were going to move on to the story, but let's talk about some real quick, just some of your least favorite puzzles. The one I didn't like, and it's not because it's a bad puzzle, is because I can't think outside the box. It's one of my biggest weaknesses, is the red herring puzzle, where you have the road toll troll, and I forget what exactly, like what the prompt he gives you is, but he says something. Let me see what it says. Does it? You have to give him a fish, but I forget what his exact like prompt is, like where you're supposed to get the hint. But you're supposed to talk to the troll, and he says he needs something that's like completely useless, and I am completely blanking on it. I will look it up real quick before I forget again. But he says something along the lines like he wants something that will like not draw attention to itself. I forget what the exact puzzle was, but you're supposed to give him the fish, which it went completely over my head originally. So
I want something that will attract attention but have no real importance.
Yes, so that's what it is. Thank you. I might cut out a lot of that fumbling and stumbling until we get to that. I want to. So attract, what was it again? I'm sorry.
It says, I want something that will attract attention but have no real importance.
That to me is a really tough puzzle, because unless you know what the concept of a red herring is in literature and in storytelling, you're not going to get it. It's not really intuitive. And I understand it's kind of like an outside the box, because for those who don't know what a red herring is, it's a false flag in a story. It's like, it's a wild goose chase for all intents and purposes. I mean, am I right with that?
Yes. It's basically like something to distract you so that you're not paying attention to like what's really going on. So it would be like
exactly
like a murder mystery. Like you think it's the butler because it's always the butler, but it ends up being something else. So he's just like the red herring.
And usually the villain puts the red herring up there to it's usually the villain that kind of puts the red herring out there to distract you. So that's when they're saying like you want something that like looks nice but actually has no real importance, or whatever the exact quote is. And that's a red herring. It looks what it's supposed to be, but it's not actually important at all. And after I gave the fish, and because it doesn't tell you it's a red herring, I don't know.
No, it's just a fish. It's a fish. Just a fish, yeah.
And so I'm kind of like, it's not even like you can even see the pun in the prompt. I hated that puzzle. There's others that frustrated me, but like that one I did not think was very fair, because like that's not obvious. That is not. I'm not saying the puzzle should be obvious, mind you. Like it should require you to think, but there's so many different layers of trying to get to what that puzzle wants you to do. And especially the fact, like, if they would have just named the fish red herring or something like that, I think that would have been a lot more fair. Regardless of if you don't understand what a red herring is, then at least you can be like, whatever. But with that said, with this game, you can literally just try to give him anything you want, every single item in your inventory, until it works. So eventually you could get this to work even without the idea of the red herring. But I wasn't a fan of that puzzle.
I think that some of this is also like the time that the games came out in, as I think some of it might have just been generational. Because I feel like when these games first came out, it was really common for you to just try 5 to 6 items. It was less about like,
that makes sense.
Like, here's the thing I think it is, and more like, all right, okay, it wasn't that. Oh, I guess I'll try everything in my inventory.
It almost seems like they were using the puzzle to tell a joke, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. I have to say, for me, it's usually what makes me the most frustrated is when I know the answer and then I don't click it right, or I don't do it specifically the way they wanted me to. Like if you have to open something rather than pick something up, and I just didn't think of it like, oh, I wouldn't have opened that. I thought. So usually, in general, that's usually what it gets me, because then I don't think about using that item anymore. I was like, well, it didn't work, and I'll try everything else, and it still won't work, and I'll get really frustrated.
But you're not sure if you're using the right verb for that object. I get you.
Right. But I think what actually got me in Monkey Island the first few times I played is I got into the kitchen, and you have to like open this barrel, and I think that's what killed me, as I tried to either. I don't remember specifically, but I tried to either touch it or I tried to put something on it, and you had to open it first. And it was either like the shape of the sprites where I thought it was already open, or it was like, or I clicked the wrong verb. And I just remember walking around the island over and over and over again, being like, what am I doing wrong? I was like, I have the meat. I know I have to put it in the poison, and then I give it to the dogs. I know I have to drug them, and this is where it has to go, but I don't understand why it's not working. And then it was like, oh, it's not open. It was like me trying to make a peanut butter sandwich without opening the jar. It was like, now I feel dumb.
Though that you referencing the dog, putting the dogs to sleep, does remind me of one of the best jokes in the whole game, where you go to Governor Marley's mansion to retrieve an idol, and they go through this thing where basically you solve one puzzle. Guybrush walks off behind the scene, and then all of a sudden you just hear all of him, quote unquote, solving puzzles. And in fact, so much so that you see the verb set, your verb set at the bottom, doing commands on its own. And it's like Guybrush picked up, rubber, like red lips, used red lips on this and this. And that's an actual object that Guybrush will pick up. You don't actually see it. It's all done. That you can't see. You're just seeing the camera slowly pan to the right, and it just steadily is going. All this stuff is happening, and it's literally just a prompt for them to tell a bunch of jokes in quick succession. And honestly, it's pretty funny. It works really well.
I really enjoyed the humor of the game. That's definitely one of my favorite parts. The humor, and I really enjoy. You see less of it in the first game. It kind of develops throughout the series, but Guybrush's relationship with Elaine is super cute. She's definitely like in charge, and he's always messing things up. But she calls him Plunder Bunny, and I think that's the cutest thing ever.
Plunder Bunny.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love it.
Especially because she's so tough. Yeah.
Plunder Bunny. I'm going to call my wife that from now on, and she's going to be very confused by it. Like, what do you mean by that? Nothing, Plunder Bunny. I love you. So let's move on to the story. The game is broken up into 3 different parts, technically 4 parts, because the 4th part is just kind of Guybrush beating the crap out of, or the Guybrush defeating LeChuck. But the part 1 is called the 3 Trials, and the whole premise of it is, and this kind of brings back to Ron Gilbert's innovation with the series and innovation in storytelling to a degree in gaming. From the very onset, the first thing out of Guybrush's mouth in the beginning of the game, he's on the lookout at the top of Melee Island, which is where the game takes place. You start out on Melee Island, you eventually go to Monkey Island, and you go back to Melee Island. The first thing out of Guybrush's mouth is, "Hi, my name is Guybrush Threepwood, and I want to be a pirate." That one sentence tells you everything you need to know about Guybrush, and that's what Ron Gilbert loves about that sentence, because it tells you everything you need to know about the character. His name, what his motivation is, and that he has no idea what it means to be a pirate. It tells you right from that sentence that he is clearly not a pirate, and therefore he needs to learn how to be a pirate.
And looking at him, you can tell that he's not suited to be a pirate.
He's this scrawny little kid. He honestly looks like Jim Hawkins from Muppet Treasure Island.
Yes.
Every time I think of that movie, I think of Tim Curry's delivery. Like after he sees like Hawkins coming back to the island to get him, he sees him on like he sees him sailing the Hispaniola, and he just goes Hawkins. Like his voice drops like 3 octaves. It's wonderful. I love that, man.
It's the best Muppet movie too. Arguably best Muppet movie.
I am 100% with you on it. It's funny. I used to hate it, not because it was bad, because my brother watched it literally on repeat for like 3 years. So I just got tired of it. But I love Muppet Treasure Island. It's got one of the best intro songs too. That Shiver My Timbers.
Yeah.
Shiver my Timbers. God, that song's good. Anyway, sorry, I could talk about them. Eventually, I should do an episode on that because there is a Muppet Treasure Island video game for the PC.
I didn't know that. I have to check that out.
It's wonderful. I don't know. Can you know what? I'm going to look it up right now to see if I can find it. Like maybe it's on Good Old Games. I don't know. It's got a high rating too. But you can actually watch a full PC playthrough of it. So I wonder if there is any place that you could, like, I wonder if Good Old Games has it or something. I'm going to look on Good Old Games, see if I can find it. But in any case, so the game is broken up into 3 acts, like I said, and Guybrush he wants to be a pirate. So not only does it tell you everything you need to know about Guybrush, it also puts the player in the same shoes as Guybrush. It immediately builds some type of relationship that the player has with Guybrush because most likely, in fact, I would say I can probably say 99.9 repeating percent of the players who've played this game are not pirates and have never had any pirating experience. So they are learning how to be a pirate along with Guybrush. Obviously, it's a very insane version of pirating. Probably a lot more fun than what a real pirate would be, and a lot less deadly.
Yes, yes. It's a lot more good-natured than normal pirating.
Exactly. A lot more good-natured. The cannibals in this game don't even try to eat you. They say they will, but they never really do.
That's because they're watching their red meat.
In this game.
Yeah. Normally we would eat you, but like we had a big human last night, so we're sticking to fruit and veg today. So if you could just hang around for a few days until.
Is that what they say to you?
I think specifically say that they're watching the red meat is too much.
Kind of funny. So what happens is the player will walk off the lookout. They'll talk to the lookout, and after he says, "Hi, my name is Guybrush Threepwood, and I want to be a pirate." The lookout literally goes like, "Ah!" and it's like by Guybrush being there, which once again sets the tone of like the sense of humor they're going for. And he tells you to go to the Scum Bar, which is a really great little Easter egg joke because, like I said, it's spelled SCUMM, just like the script language for script creation utility for Maniac Mansion, not Monkey Island. And you go to the Scum Bar, and then you talk to 3 pirates there, and they tell you need to complete 3 different trials: sword mastery, treasure huntery, and thievery. So then you have to go and you have to complete all these. Trial 1 is sword mastery, and that's where, like we mentioned before, you meet Carla, the sword master. But you have to there's a bunch of puzzles that lead up to it. There's like a puzzle through the woods where you have to you buy a map, and that map has the directions that lead you through the woods. But also, I believe in the woods is also the treasure, if I remember correctly, right? I think the treasure is in those woods that you also use to get to Carla.
Yeah, because I know you have to talk to Carla, and then you have to steal the object from Elaine's mansion, which we talked about drugging the dogs, and then finding the idol, and then the treasure. For some reason, I don't remember that one so much. Maybe it just wasn't as funny. Maybe it was a little more straightforward. I know you have to shoot yourself out of a cannon at one point, but I don't remember. Is that for the treasure?
That is for. There's so much to it. Getting shot out of the cannon is the totally culturally sensitive Fettuccine brothers.
Yes.
That you're at a circus and you have to get shot out of a cannon because that shoots you off to a different portion of the island. I think that you couldn't get to prior. I'm honestly blanking on this right now. Hold on.
That would make sense because you could only access certain areas, and then I don't know if you get a bridge. You put down a bridge later. I know that you need the chicken with the pulley in order to get to Meat Hook. He's afraid of He's afraid of parrots.
Getting shot out of the canon happens before you really can start on the 3 trials, because you basically, this is one of the parts that actually took me a while to figure out too, is that you have to, like, I didn't know you could leave the town for a long while, and I didn't know the way you leave the town is going back up to the lookout, and then from the lookout there's an exit.
Oh, right.
That was very confusing to me, because I was like, well, I've already was at the lookout, and I even went back up there and I didn't see anything else to go to, but I just wasn't hovering over the right spot. You basically need to get shot out of the cannon, so they give you 478 pieces of 8, and you need all those pieces of 8 so you can buy the treasure map, which will then lead you to the treasure. That's what it was. That I could not remember for the life of me, but you think you get a bum treasure map initially, and you find out that it does actually, because I think it costs like 300 pieces of 8 in order for you to get that, so you're left with 170 something. And then you go to the fork in the road on the Melee Island map, and then it gives you directions, and this is through the maze that I was talking about before. You should see, you go north, you should see yellow flowers. You go west, you should see a campsite. I'm not going to read the whole solution, but you follow that through until you actually find the treasure secret location in that forest. And also in the forest is to the Swordmaster Carla, and that's where you go through the forest to get the first trial of sword mastery. That's where you have to talk to different pirates along the way, and you get more insults, so build up your insult repertoire, and then you can fight Carla. And then you do the same thing with the treasure hunter thing. You get the map after buying the 300 pieces of 8. And the last one, like we said before, is stealing the idol from the governor's mansion. That's also where you meet Governor Marley. And I don't remember. I know this happens in the game, and please tell me if you remember when this is. When you get tossed into the ocean off the dock.
Yeah.
Is that in the first act, or is that in later on in the game? Do you remember?
I want to say it's early on, because right after you arrive in the island, you see like a cutscene, and they go back to LeChuck and I think Bob, and they're like, "Hey, there's a new pirate in town. He might be a problem." And LeChuck's like, "I'll handle him myself." And then he's like trying to get rid of you, so he ties you to a statue and throws you off a dock.
That's what it is. And with that, you're supposed to, throughout the whole game up to that point, it's referenced that Guybrush can hold his breath for 10 minutes. So this is really the only way you can die in the entire game. You get tossed into the ocean. If you can't figure out in 10 minutes how to escape, which, trust me, it's not that hard. It's honestly, spoiler alert, if someone doesn't want the solution, you just pick up the idol and you walk off with it. You can literally just pick it up and you walk out with it.
It's so funny of a puzzle though, because you can try everything, because logically you're like, it's a heavy, it's very large, it's heavy, so you're like, oh, do I try this on it, do I try that on it? I was like, well, they put me in here, so I must have the item to use to get out. So you're using everything in your inventory, you're like clicking everything on the screen, and then like there's the moment where you're like, no, like they're not going to just let me, and then you just pick it up and put it in your pocket, which obviously makes no physical sense, because if you could put it in your pocket, why would you be stuck? But is a very funny moment.
And that's when you can just walk on the bottom of the ocean until you reach that there. And what's funny though is that if you do die, they even have a little Easter egg there where Guybrush is now a zombie, and instead of your normal commands, it changes all your commands to like other weird, goofy things. I don't remember what they all are, but it's pretty funny.
Bone, eat brains, shamble.
That's really good. I love that. So then the second part is that you have to find a crew. Once you have all 3, the reason you have to find a crew is because Guybrush has become smitten with Governor Marley, the beautiful Elaine Marley. She gets captured by LeChuck and taken to Monkey Island, and you have to gather a crew, sail over to Monkey Island, and I believe that's where you have to you have to talk to Stan. Is it Stan? Who's the boat vendor? I'm blanking.
Yeah, it's Stan. Yeah, Stan.
Proprietor of Stan's previously used vessels, you have to talk to Stan in order to get him to sell you a crappy boat. I forget exactly what you have to do, like some of the puzzles to get a good boat, but you have to get a crew member, and that's when you have to go get Meat Hook, the parrot phobic pirate. You also have to get. Who else do you have to get? Sorry. You have to get Carlo the Swordmaster, you get Meat Hook, and you get Otis the prisoner. Otis is one of the people who helps give you, I think does he give you the red herring? Does he give you the fish? I think that's one of the puzzles in the jail. You have to he gives you something.
You get the fish from the dock, but I like that Otis as a member of your crew is just I don't know why. I think you're just bringing him because you're required to have 3 people, because he's terrified of everything, and you get him out of prison. So I don't know if he has any real pirating skills. He's definitely was previously a pirate, but he's gotten caught, and every time you try to get him to do something, he's terrified, and he's clearly only in it for the money. So obviously he's one of my favorites. He's very silly.
So you get your crew, you get your ship, and then you journey over to Monkey Island. And Monkey Island is a very interesting place. That's where you meet the cannibals, like we mentioned before. There's another one. One of the puzzles in that is you have to get a Q-tip and stick it in a giant monkey's ear to clean it out or something like that. It's very strange.
And they have the guy that's been stranded on the island forever. His Sweet Tooth or Rotten Tooth.
Something along those lines, and he has a feud going on with the cannibals.
Herman Toothrot, that's what it is.
Herman Toothrot, yeah, there we go. Monkey, and it's literally in this walkthrough. He's listed as Monkey Island's Robinson Crusoe. For those who don't know, Robinson Crusoe is a literature reference of a man stranded on an island. I've never read the book though. Have you ever read Robinson Crusoe?
I have not, but I do know that he was famously stranded. Very what's the modern reference? The film with Tom Hanks. There you go.
Yeah,
very Tom Hanks.
I don't even know Tom Hanks' character's name in that movie. I just know everyone knows Wilson, the volleyball.
Yes.
His name is Chuck Noland. Apparently, he's obsessively punctual. That, you know what? That's a new word. Obsessively. That's the for games that are too sexy for their own good. Obsessively. We're gonna put that in the dictionary right now. So you go to Monkey Island. You have to find a lane there, and by basically solving all these different puzzles, you talk to cannibals. You get captured by cannibals. So you have to escape. They eventually give you this elixir that's supposed to kill ghosts. So now you know what you need to do to kill LeChuck. You have the item you need to kill LeChuck. In true Monkey Island fashion later on, once again, spoiler alerts for anyone who, for some reason, we care about the story for this game. It's not really that deep. It's fun, though, but it's not really that deep. Guybrush loses the elixir, and so he finds root beer, and that's what kills LeChuck in the end of the game, which is really funny.
It's also cute because the root beer becomes a reoccurring joke, so it doesn't and that's one of my favorite parts about the Monkey Island series as a whole is the more games you play, the more they're self-referential. So you'll get 5 games in, and then you'll see Murray. I don't know if Murray's in this one. There's a talking head in this. That might be Murray before he was a skull, but because you use the head and it's covered in eyeballs to travel through the lava place without getting caught.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Actually, I remember this now. Because that's in LeChuck's lair that you have to travel through, and you use the head to tell you which directions you need to go. That, oh my gosh, I just unlocked that memory. It's been a minute since I've played that, but that's part 3. Once you figure out where LeChuck's lair is on Monkey Island, because the backstory to this is that LeChuck was trying to impress Governor Marley, so he sails to Monkey Island and he dies there, and that's why he's the ghost pirate LeChuck. And you just happen to show up right at the time where he's, for some reason, a corporeal form of him is able to well, I guess he's incorporeal because he's a ghost, whatever it is.
Well, he's like a skeleton he's half and half, because he's got bone parts, but he's not entirely ghost. He's that spooky, fiery parts. Yeah, he's got bone parts. He's got a few ribs still.
I love that description. He's got bone parts. Not bones, bone parts. He's just kind of made up of small little chunks of bone. That's really funny. Oh my God. So that's when he enacts his plan to, get his love back and, Guybrush. But now, Elaine doesn't actually love him and she loves Guybrush and he loves her. So he goes all the way to his lair only to find out that he is no longer there. And he's no longer there. He has actually taken Elaine back to Melee Island so they can get married. And it is up to Guybrush to go back and save her. And that's where it that's pretty much the end of the game at that point. You make your way back. You use the root beer that you substitute in for the spritzer because you ruined the spritzer and you ruined the actual ghost. I think he actually he tries to do it and then he fails. I forget exactly how he screws it up, but he screws it up and has to use root beer. And that's as LeChuck gets destroyed, Elaine and Guybrush look at the fireworks onward. Now, I kind of rushed through that, but is there anything that you would like to talk about in terms of the story that I just glossed over? Because I kind of rushed to the end because I wanted to talk about a couple more points before we wrap up.
No, I think that was a pretty good synopsis. I think if people want to see more, they should definitely play it because there's no better way to experience the story than to sit down with it. And I think it's only like end to end. I think it's only 3 or 4 hours. It's a good film length story.
If you know what you're doing, it's only about 3 to 4 hours, I would say. I don't know what it is if you don't know what you're doing, though. But nice thing is you can buy the entire Monkey Island series on Steam for relatively cheap. They're in between $7 to $10 a piece. And sometimes they sell them as a bundle. I think I got mine on sale. You can buy. Let me see what the whole bundle info is, just out of curiosity. Doesn't even tell me what the price is anymore because I own all of them. So I can't see what the price is, but it doesn't have the Tales of Monkey Island games. It only has the 4 original one. So I will try to see if they have all the Tales of Fantasia game and all the. It's only $15 for the Tales of Monkey Island games, so it's not that expensive for all the Tales of games from Telltale. So that's something to check out. So what I wanted to kind of close out the episode with, the last thing I wanted to talk about is, what do you think of the remasters? There are remakes for this game, listeners, and that's what you can play on Steam. It's actually kind of cool because you can play the original, 256 pixel graphic color versions or the updated, really nice, illustrated looking versions. And they had the updated illustration versions have full voice acting, whereas the original does not. Has, updated music. So it's the same melody, but obviously orchestrated now instead of done in kind of a chiptune vibe. So, what were did you play the remasters at all?
I did play the remasters, and what's really fascinating about that is, like I said, I played the first Monkey Island. It was one of the first games I ever owned, and I was very young. But the first Monkey Island I ever beat was the third one, and just graphically it was very different. It was for the GameCube. I think.
Well, it was also for PC, but yeah, it was the third. All the Monkey Island. Well, I guess all the Monkey Islands were on PC, but they've been ported to a lot of different places. I actually have Monkey Island digitally on my PC, and then I also have it for the Sega CD. There's a Monkey Island.
Oh my gosh!
Now mine isn't the original; it's the limited run games reprint of it. But you can get it even just going down the list right here. You can get the original Monkey Island on the Amiga, which for those who don't know is a type of microcomputer. The Atari ST, another type of microcomputer. The FM Towns, which is another type of computer. And it's funny. There's actually a portable version of the FM Towns called the FM Towns Marty, which was a video game console made by. It was only released in Japan and only lasted for 2 years. So there you go.
It sounds like a robot you would have seen in the 90s, the FM Marty.
Yeah, pretty much. Or you ever see Rocky IV?
Oh no, I have not.
There's a wild intro where Rocky gives his cousin Paulie a robot for his birthday, and that looks like an FM Towns Marty or something like that.
I can imagine that.
But it's also for classic Mac, MS-DOS, Sega CD, iOS. Like you were saying, you can play it on your phone. It's not for Android, actually, believe it or not. It's on for the newer Mac systems, Microsoft Windows, PS3, Xbox 360, all those good things. I'd be curious what the others were. But sorry, finish what you're saying. I cut you off.
Well, but because I played the third one for the GameCube, like the game has always had like orchestra and voice acting in my mind, and they got if they did not. No, I think I'm remembering this correctly. I think they got the voice actor for the later games to do the voice at the first game. If they did not, then they got a very, very reasonable facsimile of that guy because he sounds like Guybrush should sound in my head. So it's funny because when I think back to the original games, I don't remember them looking like that. I kind of remember them looking like how they look now. So to my mind, I feel like it hasn't changed at all, because the story beats are still the same, and like I already have that voice in my head. So I like both of them. And there's something really nostalgic about being able to flip back and forth. It isn't like some remakes where you're like, okay, this is the new version, I'm going to play the new version. They're like, do you want to see what it used to look like? And you can just press a button and then instantly see like the pixels, and has like a beautiful nostalgic quality to it, especially like that one scene of Melee Island where you're just looking down and you have all the lights where the cities are, and it's like dark blue. It's gorgeous. I should frame that. That's like in my memory what Monkey Island is. It's just that down shot of that one picture.
See, I hate the graphics for the new one, for the remaster. I despise how they look. I don't like it. It reminds me of the shitty Flash animation games that you would see around that time, and I did not like them then. I understand their importance because a lot of game designers got their start in Flash, and more power to them. It was just not my cup of tea. But I don't like how these looks. It kind of know what it kind of reminds me of. Like, you ever remember that show Angela Anaconda?
Yes.
Have you ever seen it? It kind of reminds me of the art style of that show, and I hated the art style of that show.
It definitely feels like a little uncanny valley, because it's not like they remade it entirely. Like they're definitely just like, maybe they're not actually doing this, but it feels like they're just reskinning it and putting, it looks like they a little bit like they put skin over pixels. So in sometimes it's like, I feel like his face changed entirely because he looked to the side. Like, I feel like his nose isn't the same size as it used to. And when it was in pixels, it was perfect. And now it's just like, why is it doing that? But if I imagine like, hey, they're just making it the exact same shape the pixels were, then like I get it. But I can see what you're saying, where it's just a little, sometimes it's a little unsettling, like the perspective, not the perspective, the proportions.
I guess so. I did not like it. Side note, though, the voice actor for Guybrush in all of the games is Dominic Armato.
Oh, he's so good.
And what's funny is he has done a lot of other voices, but he doesn't really act all that often. Like, in fact, since the last big thing he was in the Rocket Power TV show. He did voices in other games prior to that, but he did a character named Sputs in Rocket Power, which I don't even remember what he looks like. So I'm going to look it up really quick. Rocket Power Sputs, and see if I remember. It's one of, so if you ever watch Rocket Power, you have Twister, his older brother Lars. It's one of Lars's friends. He kind of has like red hair and he looks kind of crazy looking. That's Sputs. I just Googled it right now because I couldn't remember. That's kind of nuts. He was in a lot of episodes. So he was the voice of Sputs in that cartoon, but he also did voices in, he was in an anime called Gene Shaft. He did a voice in Gene Shaft. He was in, he did a lot of voices in the 90s. Like, after he started, his first voice acting gig was Secret of Monkey Island, and then from there it just kind of like he did a bunch of other things. He was a voice for a lot of different things. So anyway, that Dominic Armato, he's pretty good too. He, for someone who like didn't really do a lot of voice acting, he's pretty good.
I can't imagine anyone else being Guybrush. I know they got him for the newest iteration, and I'm very excited to just hear more of him being the world's most incompetent but somehow successful pirate.
I love it. So that's all I got for this game. Manda, is there any final thoughts on the first game, The Secret of Monkey Island? What are your final thoughts?
Like I said, I'm so game blind when it comes to this game. It's not only did this like inform my mind, my opinion on what video games should be. I also think that this very much informed like my sense of humor, because I played it in that perfect part when I was a kid. That this is like exactly what I think is funny. This is like you could define my sense of humor by just like watching or playing this game. So I'm very biased. But obviously the game is wonderful.
I would actually be inclined to agree with you. I think it is important for those who've never played this game, just keep in mind that this game is meant to be played in a different time when you would spend more time with the game than we do now. It does not hold your hand. It's not a hard game because it like you can literally trial and error your way through it. And realistically, because of Ron Gilbert's design, you're not going to spend a lot of time doing trial and error to figure out the puzzles. As long as you have some semblance of an idea of where you need to go and what you need to do, that's all you. It's not too hard. I will say I did have to look up strategy guides here and there because if I got stuck and I didn't feel, I streamed this on Twitch. If I got stuck, I would just kind of give up real fast and just go ahead and look it up. It didn't. I only did it a handful of times. I think I did it less than 10 times overall, which I was pretty proud of myself for my first like true point and click adventure game. And it's an easy one, like I said. So but just go into it knowing while it is really fun, it's a very different kind of experience because you don't get games like this anymore. I'm not saying it's bad or good that we don't do that anymore. Adventure game point and click adventures are starting to come back, especially in the indie space. You back when you and Troy did a lot of streaming on Sunday nights, you did like Dark Side Detective, right? And
yes. Dark Side Detective by Spooky Doorway, Dark Side Detective 1 and Dark Side Detective 2 they're very much in the same vein as Monkey Island. If you want to see like modernized version of that like next iteration of the point and click adventure game, I would highly recommend those. They simplify the genre even further, so it has a lot of the same enhancements. You can almost see like where Ron Gilbert's vision went from Monkey Island to Spooky Doorway. That would be a really neat comparison. No.
Okay.
Spooky Doorway. What? I think they only have like a dozen employees. They're based out of Ireland. So they're a super indie company and they kind of blew up. But I guess from his manifesto, from Ron Gilbert's manifesto, a straight line to Spooky Doorway to see how they've even simplified the process even further. So you don't even have to pick up buttons anymore. You're just doing the click and then you have like the bar on the top with the different items you have.
It kind of simplifies your verb set that you can choose everything, right?
Yeah, it just does the verbs for you. So you click on the item and you drag it to a place. And then if you're supposed to grab it or set it down or open it or close it, it just does all of that. You just have to put the elements together or the conversation pieces together rather than open, close. Yeah.
That's cool.
I say we did that. We also did Willie Morgan, which was also really good, which is definitely like inspired by Monkey Island because it's even kind of pirate themed.
Now I just want to go read that Tim Powers book. I'm just in a very piratey mood right now. You better play Uncharted 4 because that's also very pirate themed. So as for me, my final thoughts are the game's definitely worth playing. It does not hold your hand, so be prepared for some frustrating puzzles. But I think if you can get past some of the puzzles not being that intuitive, the red herring one being very unintuitive. Also keep in mind that the way you're meant to play this is you're meant to try every option and explore every nook and cranny. Like you're supposed to take your time and go through this, because if you're expecting just to be told where to go all the time, you're not always going to be told. There's a certain element of like, what to do, just not where to go. And then once that happens, you have to start exploring around, try to find different areas. And like I said earlier in the episode, there was a segment where I had to, to leave the town, to leave the town you're in, you have to go back the way you came and find the exit out there. I had no idea. It went right over my head, and it was very frustrating initially. But then once you get out there and you can see there's like a world map sort of for the island you're on, it game opens up a lot, and you can go to a bunch of different places, and it's pretty cool. So it's definitely worth playing. It's still funny. It's still really funny. I'm not like, you were speaking from nostalgia with this. I played this last year and I still found it funny. Like I really enjoyed the
humor. You wonder sometimes, like, yeah.
It really holds up. So yeah, that's all I got. That's all we got for you today. That is that is all for this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all for listening. Amanda, is there anything that you would like to plug? I would assume the Taste of Dragons podcast, of course, but go ahead, shout everything out you got.
Yeah, if you would like to give us a listen, you can listen to me talk about more video games on the Taste of Dragons gaming podcast. We eat sandwiches and play games. Don't worry, we don't eat the sandwiches on the podcast.
That would be disgusting, but go on.
We're on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Apple, anywhere the internet will let us be.
That is at Taste of Dragons at all those wonderful locations. Please check them out. It's one of my favorite gaming podcasts. Admittedly, I am not caught up, but I'm pretty far behind both you and a lot of other podcasting friends. But the last couple of weeks, I will go on binges of like 4 episodes in a row. So I've been like listening like 4 episodes straight, trying to catch up to where you guys are at currently. So yeah. As usual, for me, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StillLoadingPod on all of them. If you want to email me, you can email me at stillloadingcontact@gmail.com. If you want to support the show, you can give it a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcasting app you use, because that helps more people find the show. It helps me, it gives me blessings with the algorithm gods, and they'll hopefully smile upon me and help more people find it. If you want to support the show monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you'll get the episodes a couple days early at a higher bit rate, as well as access to a patron exclusive Discord. And then at $5 a month, you'll get all of that plus 2 extra bonus episodes a month. I think at the time of this recording, I actually I have one due out in 2 days, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that one just yet. So I have to figure that out. But patreon.com/stillloadingpod. But the most important shout out I have is the Bit by Bit Foundation. The Bit by Bit Foundation is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to put video games and video game consoles in the hands of kids receiving inpatient care in hospitals. So if you want to go support them, go to bitbybitfoundation.org and consider donating. And that will do it for this episode of Still Loading. Manda, thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And I will see you all next time.